Hello, my name is Jay. Welcome back to my Tech Vault, and today we're going to be unboxing and reviewing the Brontes or Reeven Brontes low profile cooler. And we're basically going to be unboxing it. Now how this is going to work is it's going to consist of multiple parts because you got to give a thorough test to be able to recommend or review anything. So this is going to be multiple parts. Here's the 4 parts. First off, we're going to start off with the unboxing. Then we're going to go to and we're going to install it, give a full installation, feel, because obviously you can't really tell how good a product is until you read the instructions and you go through the instructions on installing on a socket. Next thing up, we're going to basically burn test it. We're going to compare it with some other coolers that I have. We're basically just going to sit down and see how well it cools. And then finally we're going to go through a test of just how things sound, how loud it is, basically things like that. And obviously when I go through the unboxing, I'll talk about how my personal opinions on if I like it or not, like just the looks and stuff. Without further ado, but let's get into it. So this is what the cooler looks like, the nice box. Obviously there's lots of different cool text and information that I'm going to care not to read. But let's go over just some of my first observations on just the box. First of all, AM4 is not supported, and with the, I think, I'll check the manual in a second, but at least on the box it doesn't say that. And, with AM4 almost being, I don't know, a year and a half old, I would say it's a little kind of necessary to be able to do that. So here we go, we got the top off. That's what it looks like here. Honestly, first impressions, it does feel a little small. I honestly was expecting it to be a little bit larger. But let's take the sucker out. So, basically what we're looking at here is just a simple, small little cooler. Now, first of all, it does seem really low form factor, and that's obviously what you're going for, so I have no problems with that. Other thing I noticed on the back here is that it's actually supported, so it's not just a solid metal heatsink that's kind of easy to bend. It's actually pretty much got supports right here. Also, it's plastic cover, which is nice. Nice thing for, of course, when you don't want to put your fingerprints on that. So here's the instruction manual, which I will go through in a second to go through and see if I can find if AM4 is supported or not. And then, of course, we've got the installation pack right here, which I would assume is all the different sockets. So AMD CPU, I would assume, and an Intel CPU. I'm going to go through and check in the manual to see if it supports it or not. But it looks like we've even come with some thermal grease, which, to be honest with you, some brands don't do. I might check their thermal grease, though, later on, just to see how necessarily good it is compared to what I've used in the past. And yeah, okay, there's a little bottle of thermal grease, which I would RT Pro, which we'll see how pro it is in a second. Looks like it's got everything there. I mean, there could have been a little easier way to maybe separate it with some baggies and stuff, which I've had some past coolers. But we'll go through and test it, and we'll see how we go from there. One thing I will notice, though, is I just like the fact that they've kind of taken advantage of this spot right here. So basically, you have the heat pipes going out, of course, but they've also added heat pipes or heat fins on the CPU block itself, which, to be honest with you, is taking advantage of that real estate. I mean, it's not much to be had, and I mean, you always could expand it a little bit more, but I do like the fact that they did do that. And as for the fan, it does feel a little cheap plastic, but I mean, obviously, not something you're going to be feeling. And what it looks like, it looks pretty nice. I always go for a couple different color options, but obviously this is one of those fans that is low profile, so you're not going to be able to get another one for this, so no LED coolers and things like that. I think maybe a LED model would be pretty cool. That would be a good idea. But let's see, so now we've got this installation, and basically just over first impressions, looks pretty good. Nice logo embedded in there, I think laser cut or something, and it looks pretty nice. So I'm going to get into the installation now. So in the manual, we don't have any AM4 support yet, which, I mean, can be remedied, but I don't even know where you'd start to get AM4 support, so that's a big curious question there. At least in the manual. So let's just pop it open and start installing it on the system. We just have an i5 system, which is what we're installing on today, which will be future preview for my new NAS that I'm working on right now. So this is a little i5 system that I have. Obviously, it's not anything special. It's a couple years old. It's not really anything super fancy and cool, but I will say a couple things. It is really nice for testing, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be installing this cooler on here simply so I can get an idea of how small I can get this top down, so I can maybe make a case for it or buy one online. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking this off real quick and installing it, just going as fast as I can. I'll also time lapse it and put a timestamp on there so you can see how long it takes me to just do everything. Obviously keep in mind I'm a little experienced with this, so I know what I'm doing and I can kind of figure out where things go. But this is kind of an old socket, so I'm a little curious to see what it actually will look like, how difficult it would be and stuff. But I figure since it's an older socket, it should be supported, so we should be good. But that's my plan, is to put the cooler on here, and this will be the base foundation of the rack that I'll be using. Obviously I like the SATA ports on here, so that's what my goal is. So without further ado, here we go. So installation is complete, which I gotta say makes things pretty good. First off, it looks pretty thin. I gotta say it's not sticking up too much. Not like typical coolers. I mean, yes, it's still compared to the stock cooler, it still is substantially taller, maybe about, I don't know, centimeter or so. But it does look a little bit better, and it doesn't look like just a stock cooler. So what I'm going to do for this one is, first of all, just a couple thoughts off of the installation process. Number one, I really like the fact that I was lucky, in the socket that I'm using right now is actually the socket that was automatically, or the way that the fan came in, so I was actually able to just put it in without changing anything. But there is a way to do that, and it's pretty easy as well, so I was looking at that as well. So that doesn't look that bad. As for the length of this, I feel like, as usual, these are too long. I feel like if you do put it on right, you should, I think every motherboard I've seen so far recently has one of these right there. But pretty much just overall look, that's what it looks like now. And as for the sturdiness, I mean, it's on there good. Like, I would say some coolers I've had that, you know, you can wiggle around, that you're not getting anywhere. Now, know if I should be lifting it up or not, but that is the little cooler right there, which I gotta say, especially because it looks really good. I just wish for an LED, a little LEDs. This right here, it really did come out pretty fast. This was, yeah, it was like you had to apply a lot of pressure, and then it just all decided to be on your processor, and so that was the problem there. I don't see any AM4 support, which is the sad part here. I wish there was a little bit of AM4 support so I could put it on a AMD system, but I guess we'll have to wait for that, if that ever does decide to come around, or maybe look up online, maybe see if there's a socket adapter kit. But let's get into the testing of the thermals, and get into the burn test, and then of course sound test and turning it on. Okay, so here we are for the moment of truth. Let's turn this on and see what it sounds like. Just overall, like, first impressions, that doesn't look bad at all. I actually think it looks pretty good. It's really quiet. Actually, you'll hear the sound of my air conditioning unit in the background before you hear this, by a good bit. You actually just barely hear this, and the airflow on this actually feels pretty good. Like, it's pretty solid, and it's pretty solid airflow, and it's not bad at all. I'm pretty impressed there. Now obviously we'll see what happens when you turn this thing up to the max and start thermal testing, but I think we'll get into that in a couple seconds. So I'm going to head off and show the thermal test results, and then we'll go over just the final things. So in conclusion, everything that I've seen here pretty much shows that this is a pretty good cooler. Now for 40 bucks, it is low profile, and it's more low profile than some of the stock coolers on AMD. But I will say that without the AM4 support, it does kind of run into some problems there. As for just a low profile Intel build, I think that it would be fine. Honestly, with the temps around 60 degrees on an i5, I think it's pretty good. Obviously, if you have a little bit of overclocking room as well. I wouldn't say this is the best for like a workstation PC. It may get a little toasty, especially when you put something high-end like an AMD Ryzen processor. But since those are kind of really gaining popularity, I think that's probably the biggest issue there. And I think maybe a review kit added in there would be a big plus as well. As for LED options, I think that'd also be good to add a little bit of spice to some builds and stuff. But overall, I like the quality of it. Everything seems nice, high quality. It's just a little bit of socket support. Installation instructions were pretty clear. Everything like that. I just feel like the socket is my biggest concern there. And of course, a little LED lighting, as I said, wouldn't hurt as well. So if you have an Intel processor, I would recommend this. If you have an AMD one, I would probably say do a little bit more research, see if you can find a socket adapter, or if you're going for a low profile, especially this one, and you know, hold out maybe and see what else you can find. But that is basically my review of this Reeven Brontes low profile cooler. And honestly, I like it. It's quiet, it's nice. Just as I said, the socket is my only concern. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And of course, thank you very much for watching. Which I already said. Goodbye.